In the world of high-octane legends and record-breaking machines, there exists a vehicle that defied expectations, rewrote the rulebook, and left behind a roar that still echoes through automotive history. This isn't just any supercar. This is the Jaguar XJ220. Our story begins in the late 1980s, a time of bold dreams, audacious engineering, and fierce competition between the world's greatest automakers. Jaguar, a name synonymous with British elegance and Le Mans glory, had been quiet on the supercar front. But deep within the walls of Jaguar's engineering labs, a group of passionate employees, known unofficially as the Saturday Club, was working on something radical, something unprecedented. Their mission? To build the fastest production car the world had ever seen. And so, from sketches on napkins to clay models to prototypes hidden from the public eye, the Jaguar XJ220 was born. What started as a secret project became a dream too loud to be ignored. Jaguar saw the opportunity to reignite its legacy and gave the green light. The world would soon witness a supercar from Coventry that would challenge the best from Italy, Germany, and beyond. When the concept was revealed at the 1988 Birmingham Motor Show, jaws dropped. The crowd stood in awe at the sight of a sleek, silver bullet of a machine. The car was long, low, and wide, like it was built to cut through time itself. Originally designed with a V12 engine and all-wheel drive, the XJ220 concept promised everything supercar enthusiasts had ever fantasized about. Orders poured in. Jaguar received over 1,500 deposits from excited buyers around the globe. It was a dream machine, destined to be the crown jewel of automotive royalty. But as the production phase loomed, reality hit hard. Emissions regulations, weight concerns, and engineering constraints forced changes. The V12 was swapped for a twin-turbocharged V6, a racing-derived 3.5-liter powerhouse borrowed from Jaguar's Group C racing program. All-wheel drive became rear-wheel drive. And while some purists felt betrayed, the truth was far more exciting. That twin-turbo V6? It was a monster. Pumping out 542 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque, it launched the XJ220 from 0 to 60 in just 3.6 seconds and reached a top speed of 212 miles per hour, making it the fastest production car in the world at the time. Faster than the Ferrari F40. Faster than the Lamborghini Diavolo. Faster even than Porsche's finest. The Jaguar XJ220 was not just a looker, it was a record breaker. And it wasn't just about numbers. The XJ220's performance was visceral. The sound of the twin-turbo V6 snarling behind your ears, the feeling of the road pulsing through its aluminum chassis, the way it hugged corners like a race car, it was a driving experience unlike any other. This was no pampered boulevard cruiser. This was a raw, analog, mechanical beast designed to dominate. But despite its staggering performance and seductive design, the XJ220's journey was far from smooth. The early 90s brought a global recession. Speculators who had put down deposits backed out. The switch from V12 to V6 caused controversy. And lawsuits followed. What began as a 1,500-unit dream ended with just 281 cars produced. Yet today, that limited run has only added to its mystique. The XJ220 stands as a symbol of what happens when passion meets purpose. It's a car that dared to dream, dared to challenge the status quo, and dared to go faster than anyone thought possible. Each XJ220 was hand-built in collaboration with Tom Walkinshaw Racing, a name etched into motorsport legend. The attention to detail was extraordinary. The body panels were crafted from lightweight aluminum. The cabin, though minimalist, exuded a unique blend of race-inspired functionality and British craftsmanship. The scissor-style doors opened to reveal a cockpit that felt more spaceship than sedan. Even today, 3 decades later, the Jaguar XJ220 still turns heads. Its silhouette remains striking. Its speed remains sensational. And its legacy? Untouchable. It is, without question, one of the most fascinating and misunderstood supercars ever built. In a world now dominated by hybrid hypercars and electric rockets, the XJ220 is a beautiful anachronism. It belongs to a time when a handful of engineers could dream up a world-beater over the weekend. When carbon fiber wasn't mandatory. When analog ruled. And when the badge on the bonnet truly meant something. Collectors now view the XJ220 not just as a car, but as art. As engineering rebellion. As a bold declaration that British brilliance could match and even outpace the Italians. And as values rise and enthusiasts rediscover its charm, the XJ220 story is finally being told with the reverence it always deserved. So buckle up as we continue this joyride, deeper into the build, the drive, the legends, and the people behind it all. 2. The wild blueprint. Let's rewind and talk about what really made the XJ220 tick, the design, the structure, the performance blueprint that still wows engineers to this day. Every element of the XJ220 was created to push the envelope. It wasn't just a pretty face. It was a lesson in aerodynamic efficiency, mechanical purity, and motorsport-derived innovation. Aerodynamics were at the heart of the XJ220's DNA. The car's low, sweeping silhouette wasn't just for drama, it was engineered in wind tunnels to achieve maximum downforce with minimal drag. The flat underbody, the hidden headlights, the long tail, all played a part in keeping this beast glued to the ground at over 200 miles per hour. The chassis was a bonded and riveted aluminum honeycomb tub, technology straight from Jaguar's racing division. Lightweight yet incredibly stiff, this provided the perfect platform for the raw power housed behind the driver. And speaking of power, that 3.5-liter V6 twin-turbo was no ordinary engine. It came from the legendary Jaguar XJ10 and XJ11 race cars, tuned for road use but still packing the heart of a Le Mans monster. It used dry sump lubrication, 4 overhead camshafts, and twin Garrett T3 turbochargers. The result? Explosive mid-range torque and relentless acceleration. The gearbox was a bespoke 5-speed manual. There was no dual-clutch wizardry here. Just you, the gear lever, and the mechanical connection to one of the fastest machines ever made. The clutch was heavy. The gear ratios were close. The feel? Utterly mechanical. This wasn't a car for amateurs. It demanded attention, skill, and respect. But what truly set the XJ220 apart was the sense of occasion. Every startup was a symphony of turbo spool, mechanical whir, and deep induction growl. The steering was unassisted. The ride was firm. The feedback was pure. This was not about digital perfection. It was about mechanical theater. And for those lucky enough to drive one, it left a mark for life. But what truly set the XJ220 apart was the sense of occasion. Every startup was a symphony of turbo spool, mechanical whir, and deep induction growl. The steering was unassisted. The ride was firm. The feedback was pure. This was not about digital perfection. It was about mechanical theater. And for those lucky enough to drive one, it left a mark for life. 3. On the open road. To fully understand the XJ220, you have to drive it. You have to get in, strap yourself down, turn the key, and feel the turbochargers spool to life. The moment you roll onto the road, you realize this isn't a machine built for comfort, it's built for purpose. Every sound, every vibration, every twitch of the steering wheel talks to you. This is a driver's car in the purest sense. The driving position is low and aggressive. You sit deep within the cockpit, encased by the wide transmission tunnel and the swooping dashboard that wraps around you like a jet fighter's console. Visibility is surprisingly decent for a supercar of its era, but it's the sound that dominates. There's no sound insulation here. You hear everything, the whine of the turbos, the rasp of the exhaust, the roar of the intake. It's an orchestra of raw power. Acceleration is brutal. There's a momentary lag from the turbos, a brief intake of breath, then a violent surge as all 542 horses slam into the rear wheels. The rear tires scramble for grip. The car squirms. And suddenly, you're catapulting toward the horizon at a pace that defies logic. The feeling is unlike anything you get from today's electronically sterilized performance cars. Cornering? The XJ220 sticks. The steering is heavy at low speeds, but once the car is moving, it comes alive. There's no power assistance, just a direct line from your hands to the front tires. It turns in sharply. The chassis is beautifully balanced. And though it's a big car, longer than a Mercedes S-Class, it dances through corners with surprising grace. Braking is equally impressive. Massive ventilated discs all around. No ABS. Just you and the pedal. If you don't know what you're doing, it'll bite back. But if you do, it rewards with precision and poise. It teaches you to be better, to drive with intention. Long-distance touring? Not so much. The ride is firm. The seats, while supportive, are stiff. There's no luggage space. The AC barely copes with hot weather. But none of that matters. Because you don't drive an XJ220 to commute. You drive it to feel alive. And for those who've had the privilege, there's nothing else quite like it. The way it howls through a tunnel. The way it pulls at triple-digit speeds. The way it commands attention wherever it goes. It's not just a car, it's a statement. An event. A relic of a golden era when speed was the ultimate goal and engineers were given freedom to dream. Motorsport DNA that runs through every bolt. 4. The builder's legacy. Every legend has its creators. Behind the sweeping curves, behind the record-breaking performance, behind the thunderous roar of the XJ220, were the hands and minds of visionaries. Engineers, designers, craftsmen, and racers all united by a singular mission, to build the ultimate British supercar. At the heart of it all was the Saturday Club. These weren't your typical executives or top-down managers. These were grassroots Jaguar employees, engineers and designers who met after hours and on weekends to brainstorm, sketch, and build. Unofficial. Unfunded. Unapologetic. Their devotion was pure passion. Jim Randall, Jaguar's then chief engineer, believed in pushing boundaries. Under his guidance, the XJ220 wasn't a corporate initiative, it was a rebellion from within. With limited oversight and full creative control, Randall and his team began crafting what would become one of the boldest concepts in Jaguar's history. To make the leap from prototype to production, Jaguar partnered with Tom Walkinshaw Racing, TWR, a name that had become synonymous with motorsport success. TWR had won Le Mans. They had built championship-winning touring cars. Now, they were tasked with turning a fantasy into reality. The collaboration wasn't just strategic, it was symbiotic. TWR brought in racing-grade engineering, materials science, and assembly expertise. Their Bloxham facility, once used to build race cars, became the birthplace of the XJ220. Each unit was built by hand, inspected, and tested to perfection. It wasn't mass production. It was automotive artistry. The craftsmanship was staggering. From the precisely formed aluminum panels to the intricately designed interior components, the XJ220 was built with the care of a sculpture. The V6 engine was assembled by racing technicians who treated each powerplant like a piece of performance jewelry. The suspension geometry, the aerodynamics, even the welds, every inch of the car was a statement of obsession. Then there were the test drivers, the unsung heroes who took prototypes out on high-speed test tracks, racing circuits, and real-world roads to dial in handling, ride quality, and durability. These weren't joyrides. These were punishing, back-breaking evaluations in extreme heat and cold. When the XJ220 was greenlit for production, it had already seen more racetrack abuse than some competition cars. The car's very name paid homage to its ambition. XJ stood for Jaguar's lineage. 220 referred to its intended top speed, 220 miles per hour. While it officially topped out at 212, it didn't matter. What mattered was the spirit behind the name, speed without compromise. Even the logo was different. Instead of the classic growling cat, the XJ220 wore a unique emblem, sleek, modern, and futuristic. A hint that this wasn't just another Jaguar. This was a leap forward. A glimpse into a possible future for the brand. But perhaps the greatest legacy of its creators wasn't the car itself, it was the proof that greatness could come from the unlikeliest places. From late-night sketches to hand-built prototypes. From weekend warriors to world record holders. The XJ220 was more than metal and rubber. It was human ambition given form. As we roll into Chapter 5, The Fall from Grace, we'll examine how such a masterpiece became a cautionary tale, and how the world went from obsession to skepticism almost overnight. Chapter 5, The Fall from Grace. For all its groundbreaking brilliance, the Jaguar XJ220 story took a sharp and painful turn, a turn that transformed it from the most anticipated supercar of its time into a symbol of broken promises and shifting fortunes. The first major blow came from within. The production version of the XJ220, though dazzling in performance, was a far cry from the concept Jaguar had unveiled to the public. The show car had boasted a naturally aspirated V12 engine and all-wheel drive, features that had become core selling points. Customers who placed deposits believed they were signing up for that exact vision. But the real world doesn't bend for fantasy. Engineers made the decision to switch to a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 and rear-wheel drive in order to comply with emission standards, reduce weight, and keep development costs under control. Technically, it was the right decision. The V6 was faster, lighter, and more efficient. But perception is a powerful thing. Buyers, especially those who had paid deposits years in advance, felt betrayed. Some claimed Jaguar had sold them one thing and delivered another. A wave of cancellations followed. Lawsuits were filed. Trust was shattered. Then came the economic downturn. The early 1990s recession hit hard, and the luxury market contracted. Suddenly, a $650,000 supercar seemed like a poor investment. Many early customers had purchased their XJ220S not to drive, but to flip for profit. When the car's value dipped below retail before the first deliveries were even complete, speculators panicked. More orders were cancelled. Dealers were stuck with unsold inventory. And Jaguar's dream began to unravel. It didn't help that the media pounced on every controversy. Critics accused Jaguar of overpromising and underdelivering. Headlines shifted from praise to skepticism. Despite the XJ220 breaking the world speed record, much of the automotive press focused on what it wasn't, a V12 AWD marvel, instead of what it actually was, the fastest, most advanced road car Jaguar had ever built. Even within Jaguar, morale dipped. The ambitious momentum that had carried the XJ220 forward now turned to doubt. The limited production run of 1,500 units shrank to just 281. The Bloxham facility, built to handle dozens of cars per month, slowed to a crawl. What should have been a symbol of British engineering excellence became a logistical and financial burden. And so the XJ220, once destined to lead Jaguar into a new era, quietly slipped from the spotlight. For years, values remained low. Collectors avoided it. Owners found parts hard to come by. And its name faded behind the roars of newer, flashier rivals from Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren. But legends don't die, they wait. The XJ220's fall from grace would not be the end of its story. In fact, as the years passed and automotive tastes evolved, a new generation began to look at the XJ220 not as a failure, but as a misunderstood masterpiece. And so begins Chapter 6, Resurrection, where the world finally starts to give the Jaguar XJ220 the respect it always deserved. The XJ220's fall from grace would not be the end of its story. In fact, as the years passed and automotive tastes evolved, a new generation began to look at the XJ220 not as a failure, but as a misunderstood masterpiece. And so begins Chapter 6, Resurrection, where the world finally starts to give the Jaguar XJ220 the respect it always deserved. 6. Resurrection. Time has a way of reshaping perspectives. What was once mocked or misunderstood often finds new life through the lens of hindsight. And so it was with the Jaguar XJ220. Slowly, silently, the tides began to turn. It started with the enthusiasts, the purists, the collectors, the historians, who looked beyond the headlines and dug deeper. They saw what the XJ220 truly represented: engineering bravery, aerodynamic brilliance, and performance that could still shame modern machines. In an era increasingly dominated by driver aids, automatic gearboxes, and hybrid silence, the XJ220 stood apart. It was loud, analog, demanding, and increasingly desirable. People began to talk about it not in whispers, but with reverence. Restorers and specialty garages took notice. Former engineers from TWR and Jaguar returned to their beloved creation, offering parts support, mechanical overhauls, and authentic restorations. XJ220S that had sat neglected in storage were brought back to life, repainted, retuned, and reborn. Car shows and conkers events began inviting XJ220S as rare jewels of the early 90s. It didn't take long before values followed. Auction prices, once depressed, started climbing. What was once a forgotten relic was now a six-figure icon. But it wasn't just about value. It was about vindication. The performance numbers that had once been buried by controversy now shone in bold type, 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. A top speed of 212 miles per hour. Lap times that still turned heads. The XJ220 wasn't just fast for its time, it remained fast by today's standards. Automotive journalists, many of whom had once dismissed the XJ220, now returned with admiration. Reviews praised its power delivery, its handling poise, its purity of experience. In an age where most cars drove like computers, the XJ220 drove like a weapon. YouTube channels and documentary filmmakers began revisiting its story. Owners shared tales of their drives, their restorations, their passion. The internet breathed new life into the legend, introducing it to an entirely new generation of gearheads who had never seen one in the wild. Even Jaguar itself began to acknowledge its long-ignored masterpiece. Heritage divisions featured the XJ220 in their classic collections. Official support re-emerged. And the car, once buried in shame, was now being celebrated as a pinnacle of British ambition. But perhaps the most poetic part of the XJ220's resurrection is this: it never changed. The car that was once criticized for not being what people expected ended up being exactly what true car lovers wanted all along. It didn't need reinvention, it needed rediscovery. And rediscover it, the world did. 7. Living legends. Today, the Jaguar XJ220 is more than a car, it's a statement. A symbol of a time when automotive ambition knew no boundaries. A piece of living history preserved by those who see beyond the badge, beyond the controversy, and into the soul of what it truly is. Meet the owners who guard these treasures like sacred artifacts. They aren't just collectors, they are storytellers. Engineers, racers, dreamers, each with a tale of how they discovered the XJ220, how they brought it back to life, and how it continues to inspire awe. Some drive their XJ220S on scenic mountain passes. Some display them in temperature-controlled garages. Others race them in vintage competitions, letting the twin-turbo V6 howl as it was meant to. These machines weren't meant to collect dust, they were meant to run, to roar, to live. Among the most legendary is the XJ220S, a lighter, more aggressive, limited-run variant developed by TWR. Only a handful were made, each one sharpened for track use with carbon fiber bodywork and even more ferocious tuning. These ultra-rare models fetch astronomical prices at auction and remain icons of raw Jaguar aggression. Another standout is the handful of race-converted XJ220CS. These saw action at Le Mans, carrying Jaguar's hopes into battle against the giants of endurance racing. Though their time on the podium was brief, their legacy remains eternal. Modern-day owners include celebrities, designers, and even former Jaguar engineers who kept the dream alive. Each car has a story. Some were bought new and cherished for decades. Others were rediscovered in dusty warehouses, restored to their original glory, and given a second life. And then there are the fans, those who may never own one but admire it from afar. They build scale models. They film in-depth documentaries. They pass along the legacy to new generations. The XJ220 has become more than a vehicle, it has become a symbol of boldness, of dreams pursued without compromise. It's not just part of Jaguar's legacy, it's a beating heart in the center of automotive history. The Jaguar XJ220 is a car that defies classification. Too fast for its time. Too ambitious for its moment. Too unique to be forgotten. It was born from passion, engineered by dreamers, and sculpted for speed. It stumbled, it soared, it vanished, and it rose again. A story not just of a car, but of people. Of ambition. Of legacy. Of what happens when engineers are allowed to dream without limits. From the drawing boards of weekend warriors to the podiums of Le Mans, from media mockery to collector's glory, the XJ220's journey is one of the most remarkable in automotive history. It stands not just as a machine, but as a memory, a movement, a joyride through everything that makes us fall in love with cars. So here's to the Jaguar XJ220, a misunderstood masterpiece, a resurrected icon, a living legend. Still wild. Still wicked. Still unforgettable. If you enjoyed this cinematic drive through time, hit that like button, subscribe to Gearless Garage, and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't just talk cars, we immortalize them. Until next time, keep your engines loud, your spirits wild, and your roads open.